everybody on the same page. I'm going to try to go through and educate everybody a little bit about everything that's occurred actually for probably the last 20 years in one way to get to the point that we are right now. And after I get done going over this, we're going to allow a few folks up here to make a few comments. But really, this could be the beginning of a bigger push to fix things. This is being talked about statewide now very seriously. And I think as you realize House Bill 70 is going to affect 15, 20, 30. Well, any district with low income is at risk right now of this continuing. What year they fall into it, we don't know. I think everybody understands that East Cleveland has just fallen into it. And as I go through my presentation, I think you'll understand why it took them till now to get into it compared to Lorain and Youngstown. Okay, but just a few thank yous up here. Harry Williamson with the local AFL-CIO was very instrumental in helping get people together. Brian Baker from IBEW out of DC. Jim Slone from UAW. And Tim Burga, the president of the state's AFL-CIO. So what I think I'm just going to do is get right into it. And when I get done, I think because people might understand better how this is, we might have a better understanding, and we can have a good conversation if it's just between ourselves afterwards about what things we can do moving forward. So also, I'd like to start by saying, appreciate that we're not the only union that is affected by this in Lorain. There are another 7 unions that are in our schools. And you have to realize the retaliatory nature of this current regime. I think you've seen a little bit of it if you followed this. And I am the only one of the group that are full-time release. In other words, I'm kind of hard, they can't get me right away at least. And so you have to understand that many of the employees have not said as much throughout this past 2 years. And the employees like the security guards, the maintenance workers, the cleaners, the cafeteria workers, the secretaries, the parapros, they don't have as much of a voice because of that. But we're all here talking about them. And keep in mind, this is about kids. I mean, we can talk as adults about how this affects us, but what we have now figured out, this is really messing up the schools. The other day, Diane Conover-Zander and Steve Coffin and I, we had listening sessions with the teachers. We walked out of the second one we did, and I just looked over, I said, this is an educational emergency. If we don't get a handle on this quick, if you thought this year was bad, wait till next year. I mean, there's rampant violence in the schools. The kids are not being, behavior is the worst I think many of us as teachers have ever seen. And so it's not just about us, although we're here because this became a union issue when that Thursday night when he made his announcement. So as I get started here, the first thing I'd like to talk about is just straight away House Bill 70. This is not an education bill. That's a lie. It has absolutely zero to do with education. There are 2 major focuses to House Bill 70. It is union busting and charter school promotion. If it was about education, there'd be some controls in there to say that, for example, a CEO must have experience in running a school district before we can put him in. That's not the case. This was a last minute, and as I explain this, you'll see how nefarious the whole thing was. Now, for those that don't understand charter schools, because I know we have a mixture of people here today, what a charter school is, it is a for-profit school that is funded by public money. Now, the way it works, and I've heard a lot of questions about funding of it at school board meetings. One of the questions was, can local tax money be used to fund it? And is it? It is. The answer is yes. Here's how funding works for charter schools. Just as an example, if in Lorain there are 7,000 students that can go to Lorain City Schools, 300 of them decide to go to charter schools. What happens is the state sends the money for 7,000 students to the treasurer of Lorain City Schools. Once they figure out where the students have gone to charter schools, let's just say 300. I'm making up numbers, by the way. Do not quote me on the numbers. Then the state tells the district, send so many dollars to this charter school for their students, so many here. Now the state always provides a a base amount, and I honestly offhand don't know what that amount is. Let's just say for argument it's $6,000. So the state provides the $6,000. Then the state tells the school district, send, let's just say $8,000 to a charter school. Well, where does the other $2,000 come from? That's the tax money that you folks have voted on. And so yes, charter schools do receive local money. The other piece to this is, I said, you know, these are for-profit schools. So somebody gets to make money, right? So what can they do with that money? So a person creates a charter school, they say, I want to make some money. They receive their $8,000. Of course, they're going to take some of that for themselves. And you know what they're allowed to do with that money? Give it to politicians for their campaigns. Public money going back to politicians. So you wonder how we got here. Just think about the process there. House Bill 70 is a mechanism to allow charter schools to exist. I mean, believe me, they were hoping maybe we can get a whole district to become a charter school. I don't think people in Ohio are going to let that happen. I hope not, and I hope the people here are here because they don't want that to happen. So, let's come back to how we got to this place. I'm a teacher, so I may put some of you to sleep. Don't worry, but I actually go all the way back to the Reagan era. There was a thing called, a study done called A Nation at Risk. It said the schools in the United States are bad, which when I heard that, I thought, this is dumb. Because we have the most Nobel Prize winners, the most universities and colleges in the world, we educate every last person, and somehow we're doing a bad job. What you needed to understand, I guess, was there was a plan back then. The plan was, let's privatize education. The first way we do that is, we make them look bad. And we prove to you that you can't trust the public to educate kids. So that led to a law called No Child Left Behind. Now, it's a big, huge law, but the important piece to today's story is, in No Child Left Behind, they told the states, and in our United States, the states are responsible for education. If you want federal money to help with education, you must create, in Ohio it was, a report card system to rate every school district in the state. If you do that, then we'll give you our federal money. Along with that, if you find that districts aren't doing very well, you must offer those parents a choice. And they called it a voucher, so that you can take the public money, and at that time, mostly it was parochial and private schools. You could follow them. And my personal opinion is, after this started, because I'd never heard the word charter school back then, but I think as it began to happen, the parochial and private schools were not pleased because the only students they were receiving were students from impoverished areas with these vouchers. So then the people who wanted to privatize education said, hey, why don't we start up schools? And we don't care if they come from anywhere, but we just want the public money to profit from. When charter schools came to Ohio, and this is well known across the nation from the people I talked to in education, the charter schools in Ohio are the worst in the nation. When they were created, they were given no controls. At a charter school, a teacher does not have to be certified. So I do believe they need a college degree. It makes it a lot simpler. Imagine in the trades, you know, if you have uncertified electricians and plumbers and all that. Hey, the job may get done, it may be done all right, but you can't guarantee it. The same thing's true here, we're dealing with charter schools. So, all this laid the stage for what's now happening in Ohio. Let's go back to Youngstown, and you can kind of follow along on my sheet here. Youngstown has had a lot of trouble since the late 1990s. In the late 1990s, they were under fiscal distress, which that is the money one. You know, around here, a lot of districts have been having their, quote, state takeover for money. And that's all about money, not about academics. And then, due to the report card system, in 2004, Youngstown was deemed in academic emergency. It was just, there was nothing punitive that occurred, they just called them, you know, they were just labeled as academic emergency. Well, then people got a little bit disappointed. This doesn't mean much. So in 2008, they created academic distress. So any district, and the only one in the state at the time, that is under academic emergency is now under academic distress. They get a 5-member committee. Sound familiar? Yeah, and we've had that here, by the way. That didn't have a lot of teeth. All it meant was there were 5 people that kept criticizing the district about how they're implementing education. Didn't have a ton of ability to harm too many people. So then, kind of importantly, if you look down the timeline, in 2010, John Kasich was elected governor. And we all remember what got created, SB 5, right? And to everybody's credit, and a lot of people in this room, in 2011, it was voted down by the voters. And I gotta tell you, I was down in Columbus, outside the State House, you know, with everybody else at rallies regarding this. And I remember saying, boy, he was really dumb in this. He went after all the public workers. And so that got everybody, he didn't realize what he was dealing with, right? And I said, you should have just gone after teachers only. We might not be down here. Well, I guess I was a little prophetic, because if you look ahead to what's happened with House Bill 70, he's done it again. House Bill 70 is nothing, but at least from a labor standpoint, nothing different than SB 5. Veiled underneath, we're doing it for education. So, we repealed it, and then in 2013, Lorain, Cleveland, and Columbus, and I apologize to anybody from Columbus. I've been told this numerous times. I haven't really checked into it, but they went under academic distress also, I was told. And the reason that happened was the requirement to go into academic distress was to get 3 Fs in a report card in a row. Well, for a year, they turned it to 2. I truly believe the purpose was to catch Cleveland. Those of us from this area probably recall all the discussion about the Cleveland plan and the mayor getting control of the school district, right? And Mayor Jackson got control of the school district. And we happen to get caught in that too. So as I note here, Cleveland adopted a plan, it says Cleveland adopts a plan passed by the State General Assembly effective July 15th, 2013, called Sub-House Bill 525, referred to as the Cleveland Plan, giving the mayor control, and Cleveland teachers gave concessions to make this happen. You know, and it was a big bill. I believe this is it. Also in Columbus, effective the same time, was their plan. It was Sub-House Bill 167. And so, you know, when you think about this, why is this important to Lorain? We didn't get a plan. We were kept in a commission. So we have this 5-member commission, which was put together, I believe, in 2013. Now, just as a note, in 2014, John Kasich was re-elected for another 4 terms. And just wait, it only took him a couple years. Also in 2014, the requirement of 2 consecutive Fs to go into academic distress was changed back to 3. Why'd they do that? It looked like 15 to 30 more districts were going to go into academic distress, which meant Ohio Department of Education would have had to create help for 30 more districts. So we'll just fix this. Now understand, we wouldn't have been in it if it was 3 Fs, but we're stuck in it. Also in 2014, the state implemented a test called the PART test, and this was to help create the report card. You guys might remember this, because all of a sudden, every school district was nervous, not just the low-income school districts, because the PART test might not make them look very good. Because that occurred, it took 3 weeks, it was canceled. You remember the opt-outs that parents were trying to make? What that meant was there was going to be no report card the following year, because they couldn't do the test. Well, there was going to be no report, and so the state did cancel it. For every district in the state, you didn't have to have a report card, except for Youngstown and Lorain. Somehow we could create a report card from a test nobody else was allowed to use. That's how nefarious this whole thing is. By the way, that was called Safe Harbor. Okay, well, now the real story begins. Excuse me. So in the summer of 2015, And I'll put it, I'm going to talk a little bit about this. So, House Bill 70 began to show its colors, and I think the way I describe it here is on June 23rd, 2015, House Bill 70 was 10 pages long. It was a nice bill to help low-income school districts provide what we refer to as wraparound services. You know, ability to go in and get vision screening and to see a nurse or to provide social services inside buildings. And 10 pages, no big deal, everybody liked it. By the next morning, June 24th, it was now 76 pages long, sitting in the Senate Education Committee to be considered. It was approved by the Senate Education Committee in the morning. By the early afternoon, the Senate had voted on it and approved it, and by the end of the day, the House had voted on it and approved it. It was a surprise to everybody, including Joe Schiavone, who represents the Youngstown area. It's almost like the Paul Revere ride, the story of how Joe learned about it in the evening on the 23rd, jumped in his car, drove to Columbus, tried to get a hold of anybody to get a look at it. He couldn't see it before he voted on it. It's 76 pages long, folks. How could you read 76 pages, let alone, you know, to vote on it? So it seemed kind of secret, right? Do you want to know how secret it was? Apparently, discussions began almost a year earlier in the Youngstown area. And I want to point out, too, there's a difference between Lorain and Youngstown. And I don't like when people say, well, what was happening in Youngstown? I don't care. Because, you know, Youngstown wanted this. The leaders of Youngstown wanted House Bill 70. So what happened was, apparently almost a year before this, discussions were beginning to create something different than Academic Distress Commission. And all reports were, they included local control. 2 months before it was passed, that changed. Secret meetings began to be held in Youngstown. A fellow by the name of Tim Humphreys, which is their Chamber of Commerce chair, Dick Ross, who was the superintendent of schools in Ohio at the time, they had secret meetings to devise House Bill 70. And everybody in the room was admonished to secrecy over this. They knew it was coming. Now, who were the folks? And I was a little bit taken aback by this because I'm a little bit of an Ohio State fan. Because, let me find my paper here. In an article done by the Plain Dealer on July 16th, 2015, they identified who was involved in this plan. And I'll just read. It says, the bill comes with the backing of several prominent figures in Youngstown, the district most affected by the changes, including Youngstown State University President Jim Tressel, Bishop George Murray of the Youngstown Catholic Diocese, former Youngstown Superintendent Connie Hawthorne, and Tom Humphreys, head of the Youngstown Warren Chamber of Commerce. Now, Joe didn't know, I'll just go back, a senator didn't know about this happening, Joe Schiavone. But you know who was available in the morning of the 24th to testify on behalf of House Bill 70? Jim Tressel, the bishop, and Tom Humphreys were all available in Columbus. And let me read you, well, I was wondering, what the heck did Jim Tressel say about this? Because like I said, I was kind of disappointed. Here's what he told the Education Committee. Tressel told the Senate that having a CEO is key to fixing the city schools. The reinvention of the commission and the creation of a CEO position are essential because they ensure that the state and local leaders work in partnership to form the commission and that there is one person who is expressly responsible for the day-to-day operation of the district, he said. And he was for this. I got to tell you, here in Lorain, I don't think from day one anybody here has been for it. That's why we are so much different than Youngstown. We want our local control. So, moving on. And I will tell you, it was kind of funny. On June 24th, there were big things happening here in Lorain, too. Tom Tucker, the superintendent, was going to retire, and we had to replace the superintendent. And you guys might remember, we had actually kind of a contentious board meeting because we had a local candidate, David Hall, who now is the superintendent of Orland Schools. and an outsider, Jeff Graham, being considered. And I was in the administrative building about an hour before the meeting, and Tom Tucker ran into me and said, "Hey, I got something big." I said, "What?" "Oh, well," and then we went into the board meeting, and because it was contentious, all right, our Harry Williamson was sitting on one side of me, Jim Slone on the other in the front row, because we wanted somebody superintendent who we knew. And that was Dave Hall. And that being said, Jeff Graham turned out pretty good too. I don't want to, but anyways, Tom came in. He had a stack of papers. He gives one to me, goes up to the school board, gives one to each of them. It was a press release on House Bill 70. We learned that day that whoever we hire for superintendent has 2 years, and then a CEO is here. And for the board members in the room, I believe you guys went into executive session, offered, and we're going to hire Jeff Graham, and offered him some time to think about it, knowing he'd only be fully in charge for 2 years for sure. And he took the job, and from that point he continued. So after Jeff was hired, he actually embraced House Bill 70 and thought we're going to do whatever it said educationally, which there were some good pieces to it, but wasn't the addition of the 66 extra pages. And worked real hard. The current ADC approved his plan. And a little bit, this is union stuff here, because this is a presentation I've given before on some of this. But anyways, in January 2016, State Senator Gail Manning and Representative Dan Ramos vowed to help Lorain delay House Bill 70 start, or at least create a plan to prevent us from going in. Because the important part to Cleveland is they didn't get in this because they had a plan. And our theory was, let's make a plan for Lorain too. Right? And the LEA begins for negotiating. We negotiated about 6 months early for the new contract. And we tried to put in language that would make some of the legislators happier about our contract, so they'd give us a plan. We ratified our contract, which is still in place until the end of the summer in May of 2016. Then in Youngstown, they had already been in academic distress at that point for 7 years, so they were immediately under House Bill 70. They did, of course, argue that it was unconstitutional for the state to come in and take over a school district. It took a few months for the courts to rule, but the courts eventually ruled it was okay. So they got started in the fall of 2016. And it was about a year-long delay for the courts to determine the constitutionality of House Bill 70. And they hired a fellow by the name of Chris Moab to become the new CEO, which a week ago I was talking with the president of Youngstown Teacher Association. He said that Chris is gone now. And I haven't gone. We've been kind of busy, so I didn't really go research it. But he's done in Youngstown. So, in the summer and fall of 2016, Manning and Ramos attempted to add amendments to bills to protect Lorain to no avail. In November and December 2016, Governor Kasich makes it known that Lorain will not be let out of House Bill 70. And he verbally admonished Nathan Manning for supporting his mother's efforts in the State House, the hallways. I say this because it's personal for Kasich. He didn't get SB 5. Well, before he's gone, there's going to be some unions in the state that are going to be under SB 5 type conditions, and he did it. That's House Bill 70. Also, in December 2016, Representative Ramos submitted legislation in committee to delay House Bill 70 until 2018. And it was tabled along party lines. So by January 2017, we had about everything we could do done. We knew it was coming here in Lorain. And I will tell you at that time, and I think I can have witnesses at the local AFL-CIO, I was telling everybody, this is SB 5. Stop calling it House Bill 70. We're going to be in trouble here in Lorain. But of course, it was 2 years away at that point, because we had 2 more years of academic distress commission before we were going to be put into it. So then what happened? Well, just as a reminder, for those that were watching and for those that weren't watching at the time, what happened was we got busy right away trying to control who would be on this new 5-member academic distress commission, who would choose the CEO. And I know that I was with the mayor and the superintendent and the school board president and myself were all trying to figure out how can we make sure we got 3 votes that are good for us. So later that spring, the state superintendent, who got is to put 3 people on this, he put his 3 people on. And we actually celebrated a little because we thought one of those people, he's a Lorain County guy, he's going to be the chairman, he will help protect us here in Lorain a little. Well, so then we get around to, we're going to select the CEO. And lots of names were out there. Jeff Graham had openly said he wanted to be it. The school board said, I think we'd like to keep Jeff Graham. The mayor said we'd like to keep Jeff Graham. And I said it too. So that meant that when they got their final 5 finalists, Jeff Graham was not going to be in it. They didn't even put him in as a finalist. They had 5 people who I would say are probably all the same. And of them, they chose Dave Hardy to be the CEO. And I believe the date was July 27th. He was hired. At the meeting, I will tell you that he said that next week, my wife and I are coming to Lorain to look for a house, and I'm going to put my kids in the school district. Now, so I personally, my personal opinion is that I don't care if he lives here or not, but what I do care about is if you say you're going to do something, you better damn well do it. And I think we're learning that there isn't much there. And I think back to, what was it, 2 months ago at a town hall when he was asked about where he lived, which, by the way, I think the realtors already took care of his house in Lakewood by then, but it was still Avon. And they asked about, would you send your kid to Lorain City Schools? His comment was, well, he has a 5-year-old, and I think he can go to preschool here. Yeah, the 5-star preschools we have here in this district. But he said, no, I think I'm concerned about safety. And I'll tell you what, I think he thought we were mad at him. The first thing that went through my mind is, well, it was a pretty good place until, about 18 months ago when the CEO took over and changed the rules for behavior. Because I will tell you, and if you haven't heard, the schools have become much more dangerous places. There have been a lot of fights. They've implemented a thing called restorative justice. Yeah, and it has, even the people that are supporters of restorative justice says, it's not for people who fight like that. But they try to apply it. Anyways, so we got Dave Hardy. And I remember him saying that he had to finish up some things in St. Louis, and he would be settling in his office, October 18th. I remember the date because I wrote it down. I thought to myself, you're being given the most important job in the state of Ohio for education, and you've got 2 months to get here. Now, admittedly, he did come to town for a few meetings. I was checking St. Louis newspapers to learn about him, and his last day in St. Louis was August 26th. And to me, I thought to myself, I was a little concerned about the commitment when I saw that. All right. Well, anyways, I kind of have to say the rest is history, what's happened here. Now, let me just give everybody a recap of what happened last year. Now, he's been here now 18, 20 months. I will tell you, last year, generally speaking, he kind of left the teachers alone, all right, although we were very concerned about some things we saw. You might have noticed what he did first was he fired nearly all the directors in the central office. He replaced them with chiefs, because now we have chiefs. We have the chief of equity, we have the chief of strategy and innovation, we have the chief of chiefs. I get mixed up, honestly. Oh, we have the chief of the people. Yeah. And I will tell you personally, I think some very good people were let go through that process that could have really helped us here. And we went without people. Our HR department had no leader for almost 5 months between when he let her go. And she had to be paid until July 27th of the summer. She was paid by the district for 6 months after he let her go. Now, in terms of the building administration, I think we all know there was massive changes there. Last year we had 26 principals and assistant principals in the school district. I was going to look up exactly how many are left of last year's crew, but there's only 5 or 6, I think. And this year, now I just said we had 26 administrators last year, we have 56 in the district. We have 30 more building level administrators. They're called deans and turnaround, or I call them spinning principals, and different things in all these buildings. And you say, whoa, didn't that cost a lot of money? Well, he had a trick. He took title funds. Because I don't know if you guys know what title funds are. Title funds are given to the district from the federal government. And their purpose is to be used directly. We've always felt their purpose was to be used to help tutor kids. Fully certified teachers were used to tutor students. We've had them here for a long time. Districts everywhere have them. We had 34 people in that capacity. All of those people were removed from that position, and he did say that federal money was then used to pay for all the additional principals he hired. You say, what happened to those 34 teachers? Well, we were a little nervous last spring because they had to go back to the classroom, and we didn't have room when the spring occurred. And I will give him credit. He protected everybody's jobs. He allowed people to be substitutes until positions opened up and everybody was paid. But we were very concerned because that was taking away what we felt were very valuable services for kids. That tutoring, post-tutoring programs are awesome. But he said, well, we're going to have these deans, and they can do the same thing, and they can help with discipline, they can help with attendance. And so we ended up with just a whole bunch of more principals. So, how did that look this year when we got here? And you might recall at the end of the summer, he broke another promise. He had promised the administrators who didn't have a job that he had fired as administrators could return as teachers. And just it was July 31st, he told them, nope, I'm not gonna follow through on that promise. Which, fortunately, the courts got involved and said, no, you can't do that. And they all got their jobs. So they were protected. Once again, he made a move, couldn't actually do it. So, this year things changed a little, and were changed a lot. Before the school year started, we had agreed as teachers to give him 5 days to work with us. We called them professional collaboration days. And the theory was, we know you want to make changes, we get the idea that House Bill 70, you're going to have to implement different things. But we want to sit at the table and help you with those. So for 5 days, we thought we were going to sit down with the new administration and work on the new changes for the year. Didn't really work out that way. It turned into, well, some people got something out of it, but most of us said, no, that was just a bunch of 5 days about nothing. But one thing we left with it was, I guess there's not going to be many changes. We didn't talk about much. Well, lo and behold, 4 weeks later, administrators told the teachers in the K through 8, the kindergarten through 8th grades, and understand this is 350 teachers who give grades to 4,000 students, that they were to erase all the grades that they'd already put into the computer program system for the district. The reason, we're going to standard-based grades. And we were not ready for it yet. Of course, I immediately engaged the administration and said, hey, I mean, we don't want to say we won't do it, but we're not ready. That didn't matter. We just continued, and interim reports were weeks or two later. Report cards were late, and on top of it, nobody knows what it says. What we changed was from the typical A, B, C, D, F system to a system that assigned numbers to multiple categories for what students do. Now you could use 1, 2, or 3, or you could use 1, 2, 3, or 5. That became confusing because the district said they were doing both, and we didn't know where. And I will tell you that only on Tuesday at the board meeting, I learned another problem with that, and that is with our Young Scholars Program. And I don't know if you were familiar with this, but Ohio State, for many years, has come to Lorain and chosen 7th and 8th grade students, and I believe, I didn't check on this, I think they get a free ride if they finish the program when they graduate high school. They don't know how to choose their kids because they use a GPA system, which is based on letters. And this numbered system doesn't work with that. So, I want to move on to a little teacher issue here. It dawned on me, quite honestly, this morning I checked the dates. We were a little vocal about the standard-based grades, and I think you've heard about teachers being walked out, right? Well, it dawned on me, it coincides with when the standard-based grades came out. So I will tell you that right away, within a week, 3 teachers were sent home pending investigation, but they were being paid. I'm sharing this only because they told me I can, because I hope you understand my position. I'm kind of a little like a lawyer. I really can't talk about personal items that teachers are going through unless they give me permission. But honestly, all 3 have said, yeah, go ahead and talk about it. But those 3 teachers were put out for a total of 18 weeks, which more importantly means they could not teach their students for 18 weeks. All came back the day after we talked about it. They were not allowed to, well, let me give you one. I got to give you this one. This teacher's been asking me, what are you going to tell people about this? So this particular teacher was called down to the office after school on Friday. She was handed a letter, sealed, and said, I don't know what's in it. Of course, I think the principal and the facilities director, Jeff Hawks, knew what was in it. And it said, you're being assigned to home pending investigation, paid. So she was being paid. As you're investigated over comments you made to scholars. Of course, I talked to that teacher a little an hour later, and she said, Jay, you know what? I actually am not worried. I have not had a problem with a student or a parent this year yet. But I don't know what this is about. So this teacher, 5 weeks later, in 5 weeks, they never shared with us what they thought she said, what they thought she did. We finally had an opportunity, she had an opportunity to hear the allegations and respond to them. So what we learned too was happening. The district had found money to give all of the students, I forget what grade levels, laptops for free. The kids figured out they can record their teachers with the laptops. The kids, and I don't know how they thought of this, they figured out if they record them and take them to the administrative building, teachers can get in trouble. This is what happened with this teacher. A student had recorded her teaching. So I'm going to tell you the whole story because it's baffling to me. She had yet to see the allegations against her and nobody told her what she did. We met with the administration and we said, can we see? And they wouldn't tell us what she did. She said, we'll let you watch the video. So they left the room and watched the video. It went on for 7 minutes. The only kid not engaged was the kid doing the taping. And we looked at each other after watching and said, I don't see what happened. So they came back in, and I think they wanted the teacher to criticize herself. And finally they told us what she thought they did, or what they thought she did. She told the student to shut up. She's been off for almost 6 weeks. Now, I know alone, I'm offended that that is not a problem. You should be able, I mean. But what's more, you watch the video, guess what? She never did it. She told the student to shush once. It was a very calm classroom. The point is that, I mean, I know you're all saying, I don't want to be that teacher. I've been sitting here for 5 weeks, and I know what's going on. But her students didn't have their regular teacher for 5 weeks. I point this one story out because this is just one of so many I'm currently dealing with in this district. We talk about educational urgency. Folks, it is, okay? So anyways, I could go on by probably 2 hours with this, talking about all the things that have occurred. And I know when I get done, some teachers are gonna come right up, why didn't you tell them about that one? Okay? So anyways, just moving on. Just, if you recall, after Christmas, he published misleading information about teachers' attendance, claiming teachers missed on average 18.2 days. That is wrong, and you know I've said in the paper it's a lie. I still have not got him to correct that. And finally, you know what happened, it was a week ago Thursday. He decided that he was gonna really rein in these teachers by telling a whole high school teaching staff they have to reapply and interview for their jobs. And I guess, you know, that's kind of why we are here today. I'd be remiss and to some of my teachers if I didn't mention a few of the situations, and many of you heard most of these at the Board of Education meeting. And for those of you who haven't seen it, I would watch the Board of Education meeting that occurred last Tuesday. You can access this by going to even the district website, go to channel 20. And it might take you 2 or 3 hours, but it's very telling about the atmosphere around here. We talk, and I've mentioned this, that we worry about retaliation. At Tuesday night's Board of Education meeting, it was let out, I don't know how to explain it, that the principal at General Johnny Wilson sent an ounce of marijuana through the courier to the administrative building. So that's not a secret. But what happened the next day, that principal spent the whole day running around the school trying to find out who told on her. But is she in trouble? Is she putting on paid administrative leave? I haven't heard about it yet. Okay. Anxiety amongst the staff, the students, all the other workers is huge in this district right now. It's hard to explain. Give you one more story. A 5th grade teacher told me last week, now one of the things, we have all these new principals, right? Wouldn't you think they could take care of student discipline, attendance, activities? They've been engaged in evaluating teachers. Some teachers have been visited 10 times in one day by the administrator observing their classroom. Some of them, and many of them get it every day. In a classroom over in an elementary school, and it was a 4th or 5th grade classroom, the teacher told me, they had 4 girls were kind of having a little bit of an issue in their classroom. And one of the girls got really upset, sat down across the doorway and just started crying, bawling, and screaming. He looks up at her, and he's trying to deal with the other 3 girls. He looks outside and he sees one of the deans coming. And he thinks, oh, thank God, I need a little help here. The dean walked up to the classroom, looked down at the crying kid, stepped over her, walked to the back of the room, flipped open her laptop, and began evaluating the teacher on how he's teaching. And then just left the classroom. Did not help with the situation. This hurts kids, folks. This isn't about teachers. Why are they there? They're there to help kids. A crying kid should be immediately dealt with, especially by any adult that's nearby that has the time. A teacher has 25 to 30 kids in his classroom and needs help. That has to occur first. And I just want to address the violence in the schools. I'm a high school guy. I talk to high school teachers all the time. It's a mess up there. 2 fights a day is normal. I was just talking with somebody who knew people from Life Care. They actually were putting an ambulance near the school so they could be there quickly last fall. One elementary school had 9 fights in one day just a couple weeks ago. It's dangerous, all right? And people have asked me, have teachers been injured? Yeah, a little bit, nothing serious yet. And unfortunately, a lot of it's happening at the elementary schools. But it's because we don't have help from the administration to deal with it. So anyways, I guess I probably painted a pretty good picture of what's happening in the schools. So let me move on to something better for a minute, hopefully. I want to go to Youngstown for a minute. Back in May 5th, 2017, Youngstown filed another lawsuit. It appears that House Bill 70 may not have followed procedural law in the legislation. A law, something like this, should have been read distinctly 3 times and on 3 different days before it could be passed. You'd heard me explain the timeline of morning and 2 votes in the afternoon. It's 76 pages long, folks. I don't know if you could even read it 3 times, let alone 6 times, because it was 2 houses. But anyways, so they filed a lawsuit. Sometime, I believe it was June, the courts ruled that it was still okay. House Bill 70, you didn't have to do 3 readings. Fortunately, end of last year, the state Supreme Court accepted the appeal and was going to hear it. And all that should be happening here soon. I know that we filed our briefs, our organization, as well as the Youngstown area and Canton, because they know that's coming. They all filed briefs in support of making House Bill 70 unconstitutionally passed and getting rid of it. We were hoping the state might not even argue, but they did on February 25th. They filed their brief. Keep in mind, this argument is not about schools. If I understand, I'm no politician, I'm no attorney, but it seems to me that you could pass any law last minute if this is upheld. I mean, if you can do it in this manner for House Bill 70, I'm just speculating, I guess you could make marijuana legal. by doing it, and you have to fight backwards. So I'm really hoping the Supreme Court sees that, but I'm, once again, not going to be there arguing it. Okay? I want to remind you, too, that East Cleveland went in just a few months ago into academic distress, and they already got a CEO. I've watched school districts spend months looking for the right superintendent. Somehow in this process, you can find the right CEO in literal days. I keep thinking, I think down to our Department of Education, they have a vending machine for CEOs. We didn't pull it down, here we got some for you. It's amazing how quickly this happens. So, what can we do, what are we doing? And I know I have gotten some kickback because people think we've been sitting on our hands here in Lorain. That's far from the case. As you know, we as teachers are at risk. The more we say, the more we do. I personally have to work with the CEO. We don't know if he'll, he could be here next year again. So, first off, the Supreme Court ruling. If that goes, if it's considered unconstitutional, I think the next day it's over. School board gets their power back, and I would imagine they find some way to be superintendent very quickly. That's the easy solution. The next piece is the Academic Distress Commission itself. I have listed here the representatives that are currently on that. I won't go through them, you can read them, but note that the three at the bottom in bold, those are there put in by the state superintendent. The last person listed was just, the chair was just announced, I think, Tuesday. And so there's a full group. What can they do? Well, the contract for the CEO is a 3-year contract. And just while I'm talking about it, he gets $190,000 a year, plus he gets all his STRs picked up and all the other pieces. You can get that, that's public record. He also is eligible for a yearly bonus of $10,000. And I will tell you, he has not received that. Probably an oversight on the first Academic Distress Commission, or the first group's case. But anyways, but more importantly, and I'm not a lawyer, if I read it wrong, I apologize, but it looks like in his contract, he must be told 30 days before his last year if he's going to get an extension. So you know what that would be? That should be early July. The Academic Distress Commission is going to have to decide to give him an extension at that point. Or not. We don't know, and I'm sure since he works for the ADC, they could probably just fire him too. So we don't know what happens at that point, but the ADC does have a little power left. A lot of it depends on the chairman and what he decides to do. Along those lines, folks, I'll just say it publicly, I think what happened at the board meeting on Tuesday needs to happen at the next ADC meeting. I think the new chairman has to hear what is happening in these buildings, what education has come to here in Lorain. All right, but I'm not going to be in charge of that. I think there's enough people out there that have the ability and wherewithal to do that. The next solution is legislative. And I know that a lot of politicians from this area are working really hard to change House Bill 70, to do something with it. The sad thing is, I've talked with people down in Columbus quite a bit over the past 2 weeks, and there's definitely a push to prevent this from moving to other districts. The problem is, Youngstown and us are deep in it, and East Cleveland just got there. And we're in Lorain. We have to push legislators to give us a little break on this too when it occurs. Not just prevent the Cantons and the Daytons and all the other inner city school districts to get out of this. It's tough because House Bill 70 is a law. Okay? Which leads me to my last thought. We did a good thing, we really were powerful in SB 5, right? Okay? And I got to tell you, I got this picture here. And I walk in the office every day and see this picture. And what this is for you in the back, this is a picture of 3 of our members. And they're holding these signs that say, big circle, line through at 5, Educators Against Senate Bill 5. And for 3.5 years, I walked into my office and said, you know what? I wish that 5 would be replaced with a 70. Because that's how serious this is here in Lorain. I don't know if there's a wherewithal in the state just for a couple of 3 cities worth of educators and their unions to get a statewide referendum And I wouldn't know how to do that myself, all right? But I think there's people potentially in the room or people that might hear this. You know, this is going to affect everybody in the state at some point. And hopefully the Supreme Court fixes it before then, but if they don't, I don't know. I'm just putting it out there, that possibility. So anyways, as I close up here a little bit, I think it becomes very important too that we coordinate together moving forward if anything occurs. One thing I will tell you is that House Bill 70 is a long bill with a lot of language in it. If you think you discover something that can be helpful to the teachers, the school board, anybody, let us know, but don't put it out there publicly right away. There are certain things we hold dear, and that is the language in contracts, the language in laws, and if something is released too early, we tell them how to deal with it, and we can't use it to defend ourselves. And so I would encourage you, once again, not just me, but any of the other organizations that are planning, that are hoping to help with this. My contact information is the bottom of the sheet that you got. Feel free to contact me, my email, my cell phone number. We need to all get together. And the difference in Youngstown, Lorain is, Youngstown people thought this was a good thing to do. We in Lorain are proud. I believe that. I've been here a long time. And, you know, there's a lot of movers and shakers that come out of Lorain. I'm just curious how far we can move it and shake it. Yeah. So anyway, folks, before we move on to talk about, get some comments from a few people here, that's my gig. So thank you for paying attention to me. I'm going to turn it over here to Harry Williamson for just a minute to introduce just a few people here. I don't know everybody that's here, and if you would, or if you want to make a comment.
Thank you, Jay. First of all, I'd like to thank everybody for coming out this morning, showing your support. First and foremost, the leadership of Jay Pickering and all his officials and the teachers, and we have multiple groups within the school system here. We have, USW, we have SM Sheet Metal Workers, OPSI. So, and we've been working very closely with Jay through the whole duration of this mess, and it's unfortunate. It doesn't just affect, people think I'm here because, or we're here. We have affiliates within the Federation, various. If you're part of the AFL-CIO, raise your hand out there. So see, we have those groups, and I want to thank you. And it just doesn't affect unions. It affects families, the students, the community, businesses, the health and safety of those people working, trying to educate our children. I was born and raised here. I'm a product of the Lorain City School Systems. All my children went there, and we're proud of it. We're proud of what these educators do. And it's sad when they go to work, and Brother Pickering was showing me photos earlier of teachers' bruises, and it's sad when we have to have an ambulance on standby because expecting injuries to teachers or students. But we support him. We support all of you. We support our unions, our teachers, our educators, our community. So let's continue to be there for him. Whatever he asks us to do, let's do it in full force. And I'm pleased to see some of the leaders within our community. I see Mayor Chase Rittenauer back there. I want to thank him for working so closely with us. Thank you, I saw Lorain Police Chief Sal Rivera. Thank you, Chief. So again, let's continue to monitor this. It's a mess, and again, we have to support. And anything you folks want to do, reach out to one of us. So at this time, it's my pleasure to have somebody that came all the way from Columbus. It's the Ohio AFL-CIO president, Tim Burga.
Morning, everybody. President Pickering, President Williamson, great job. Famous words. Yes, I'm from Columbus and I'm here to help. So usually I do not get a lot of applause. Look, Jay, I know the stress that you and the affected unions and those you represent are under during this thing. You did a great job laying the history out. I couldn't agree more. We go back about 40 years now to unfair trade and the exploitation of workers worldwide, and see what it's done to our manufacturing economy here in the United States. About the same time frame as when they started to come after our most valued and cherished public services and institutions, and public education has certainly been in the crosshairs of that. We're aware of everything Jay laid out here, what we know, and hopefully what Ohioans now know everywhere is that this ruse to take away public money and send it over to for-profit charter school managed operations. ECOT blew up big time, right? And we now know what Jay was referring to about the pay-to-play piece of that. These charter schools are not held accountable. They're underperforming and they're ripping off the taxpayers, and it has to stop. So, as President Pickering also accurately said, when organized labor is united, the community and the general public will follow. We've seen it for well over 100 years in this state. We saw it very clearly with Senate Bill 5. So I wanted to come here myself and just gauge the interest and the intensity of where you're all at. Jay has laid out the options on the table here, that things to come up. We were cautiously optimistic when they were talking about the wraparound services bill, and Democrats and Republicans were working together on this, and it seemed too good to be true. And then overnight, out of nowhere, they produced this very thought-out document, which was House Bill 70, and realized a lot of legislators had been duped at that point, unfortunately. We opposed the Cleveland plan. We opposed this House Bill 70. We worked very closely with Senator Schiavone on all of the work that he was doing and others in the General Assembly were doing to oppose and stop this and say, look what's going to happen. Well, now, ladies and gentlemen, sisters and brothers, we know what is happening, and it's not good, and we've got to stop it. And whatever the weight and power of the State Labor Federation can bring to bear to help out here in Lorain, because this isn't the last stop on this deadly trek to take away public education and a union bus, we will do it. So thank you and stay strong.
Thank you, President Burga. Also, I would like to acknowledge Brian Baker here from the IBEW and out of DC. It's a big part in helping us get this going today. Would you like to say a few?
So, first of all, you probably think, why is someone here from DC where nothing gets done? And I've been there for going on my 13th year, and I would say that's 100% correct. But what I will say Tip O'Neill said all politics are local. And so I'll tell you how I got involved in this. I have 4 granddaughters that go to the school district. My daughter Courtney, I hear about this almost every day on my ride home from work. So I've heard from my granddaughter being called by a liar by a principal in the school that's 13 years old, and my granddaughter was there and heard it. I don't take that very good that when they talk about my grandchildren, and I don't think anybody in here does. And it wasn't from a teacher, it was from a principal, it was hired by Mr. Hardy or whatever his name is, and I think we need to make sure he leaves. So I tell tell my daughter, you need to get involved, which I'm fortunate that I have a lot of contacts here from when I was here, working here as the business manager of IBEW Local 129, and working in the community, because I believe there's three things that we all need to talk about here today. It's about the kids, it's about the community, and about unionized workers. And unionized workers are what got me frustrated. How many days ago I think it was, Jay? I got introduced to Jay, knew who he was, but didn't work with him when I was here. Driving home from work, my daughter calls me and tells me that they are going to terminate, or however she told me, they're going to get rid of all the teachers at school and they all have to reapply. And I won't say the language I told her on the phone, but that is very much union busting at its best. And I said to her, you need to call Mr. DeMacchia, you need to call Mr. Ballard, you need to call Harry, you need to, I started telling her, she goes, Dad, I don't know them, can you call them? And I will tell you is, if we don't all do something here today about this, nobody's going to do it for us. That I do know. It is very, very frustrating. I met with Jay yesterday, just so you know, a lot of people, I mean, this is still my home. I will come back here to live here. As my wife, I will tell you one other quick story about my wife, because that's probably the biggest part. I went home and was complaining to her about this. She said, what are you going to do about it? Who are you going to talk to, or what's going to happen? Because you know about it right today, and if you don't do something about it, then it's on me. And fortunately, from where I'm at, I mean, I actually talked to Senator Brown that night on the phone about another issue, and I can tell you, when you get him on the phone, you should tell him about whatever's on your mind. Fortunately today, we have a representative from Sheriff Brown's office here today, Drew, and I don't know your last name, but I met Drew today. But I will tell you is we're going to get them in touch with their office, we're in touch with Jay and everybody to see what we can all do. But what I will say is, all of us can do something every day, and I'll challenge myself today to do one thing a week for Lorain City Schools and unionized workers here. And I ask everybody in this room to do the same. What you have to remember is, these teachers are doing, it's great work. I look back in my life and think about the teachers that I still remember that taught me, and the influence they had on me. And then I look here and they will not let you guys do that job. 2002, I think I sat on the Business Advisory Committee for Lorain Schools, actually when Keith Lilly was on the school board. You guys all probably know B. Morgan was here at that time. Kevin Sokolik was the president. He asked me to go on there. I didn't know what I was getting myself into, and I found out when I got there it was a lot more than what I thought I was getting into. But what I do know, when we were in that room that day, anytime we talked, it was for the best interest of children, and the best interest of the community, and the best interest of unionized employees at that school. They tried to use our committee to like force you guys out on strike. The day that I was there, and you guys probably know these names, there was Terry Tomaszewski, there was Ted Jacobs, there was Lenny DeLuca, I think Ro Ramos sat on there at that time, and I can tell you what I told them that day is, I'm as union as they come. If they're out on that line, I'm standing with them. I'm not standing in this room, I'm not going to let you use me as an scapegoat. We need to sit down and work through this issue. So what I would say is, anybody here that can ever get on any commission where you can be inside the room, that's where the difference is made. We can go out on the street and we can rally and we can do that. They're good, they rev people up, they do it. Behind the scenes working like what Jay's talking about. And we need to be the mouthpiece for those educators, for the guards, for the maintenance workers, for anybody that's in those schools. Because we can speak out. If you want to have me do it, I'll do it from DC. Pretty easy, nobody really cares what you say in DC. And I say that we all laugh a little bit, but we aren't doing a lot there. You guys have the opportunity here, really, to make this happen by using everybody in this room and your skills and your abilities. And, you know, whether it's to the State House, whether it's, you know, just someone going out and, you know, teachers, something's happened in the school, and you start to talk to people about it. I mean, fortunately here, between Jay and Harry and Tim Burga, I mean, we were last Friday night, and look what we have here this morning. I mean, and there probably could have been probably a lot more if we had a little bit more time to talk about it. And there's probably tons of stories in this room where we do. I would challenge everybody, though, School board meetings, and I would challenge even the academic distress committee, the people in the back here, I think there's 2 members here. I challenge you to have meetings at the time when people can attend them. Because you have to realize in this town right here, there are a lot of single parents that have to work. If you have a meeting at 8:30 in the morning, 4:30 at night, 2:30 in the afternoon, whatever it is, they can't go. Fortunately, some of the people here on union release can go to those meetings. But the people that really need to be in those meetings are the ones that their children are in those schools and that. I mean, it's a known trick, and I mean, some of the labor leaders, I come out of the building trades, when they wanted to pass a bill, they call a special meeting at 1:30 in the afternoon when they knew you were out of town. I mean, that's how it happens, but they notified it publicly, they have to do it within 24 hours. That's what they do. So like, we all need to be very vigilant with Jay, and if he asks for Harry or Tim or somebody says, can you at least get 3 or 4 people? And if most thing I think is most important is wear something that says I'm union. That they know you're there. They do not want you to be there. I know we're recording this, but I'm going to say it. Take a notebook there, write down your name, write everything down in there so that you can bring that back. Even in school, I would say anytime anything happens, write it down. Because if you keep a log every day, it's admissible in the court of law. It's better than anything there are, but you have to consistently do it every day. So what I say here today is I think this is a beginning to something that has to be better. I mean, I look out at Sal Rivera, and Sal Rivera, when I was a business manager here, came to us and asked the building trades and the AFL-CIO to support, and I'm going to probably get it, do it right, or it was done to do the right thing. It was at down at Black River Landing, and I think it was on a Saturday or a Sunday. You know, a lot of people have a lot of things to do on Saturday or Sunday. I can tell you, the first time I did it, I never missed it after it. He asked us to help him raise money, because what I realized in this town here is a lot of jobs have left. When jobs leave, a lot of people don't have the income, or a lot of good paying jobs left. So you came down there and you saw kids that walked around that there was no way they were going to be able to get a pencil, a pen, a notebook, or whatever it might have been. And so to us, we were fortunate at that time, so we donated to the chief, and I will say this, and Walmart was trying to come to town and build a store and not build it with unionized labor. And when Sal Rivera told them that he would not take their donation from Walmart, at that time, we told him we would make up the difference in that money because he supported us at the time. So what I would say to everybody here is we're all in this fight together. I mean, the police chief doesn't want to keep officers having to go over and arrest the kids or whatever he has to do. Nellie, the security officers don't want to be picking up fights. They want to just make sure that things are staying in order. I mean, the practice is there. But what I would say is, if the teachers or the people that are in the school building know there's something they're not following, and you need someone to make it known, let's all work together and figure out how we get that information out. That's how we win the fight. The fight is not going to change. I mean, if we're waiting legislatively, I mean, Representative Miller's here today, it's very hard. The minority is in, you got to realize when the minority's there, they can try to amend things, they can try to change things, they can introduce things. Sometimes they work and sometimes they don't, right, Tim? I mean, sometimes you might get just this little piece that you need a trade-off on. We need to find every little piece of that trade-off so that at the end of the day, we get the result of going back to having local control in this school district. The school board has it, working with organized labor, the employees that are at the school, to make this a good community, which it is, and make it a good school district. And I told Jay, I come back to this area every other weekend. I mean, if you guys have something, I asked Jay to notify me. There's a part of it is, when I moved to DC, my wife explained to me how we were going to come back every other weekend. And I very much listened to that. But what I would say is, the part of that is, that's why I've been married for like 36 years. What I say in the part of it is my granddaughters, I look at my granddaughters, and one of my granddaughters, she does get tutoring, so that's probably the Title I piece. And if they're going to take Title I away from them, and my granddaughter can't get that tutoring, that's personal to me. And everybody in this room has something that's personal to them of what happens in this community. And we're the only ones that can change that. We have a lot of elected officials here, and I've dealt with elected officials. I was our national political director for the United States. We have pretty good ones here. Some politicians in this country give you a lot of lip service and don't do anything. And the only way you hold them accountable to do something is this group right here does it. And I don't care whether it's in the churches, I don't care whether it's in meetings like this, and I think we need to continue this when we leave here today. How do we continue it? And it can't be 2 or 3 people. It has to be a lot of people and a lot of groups, and be able to listen to all of us together to see which one has those contacts. I could tell you there's a gentleman that's passed now that Jim Slone replaced. There's a guy named John Hatcher. Mike Sherman's in the back. When I started in this, they'd say, we're going to do this, we're going to do this. That's how I got involved. Now those guys are passed, and we need to have their legacy lived on to help Jay. Well, you're still here, Mike. But what I would say is, it's just here. It's out of your heart. And I'm as union comes, and like if they're going to challenge the union, we might even had a difference a year ago. Put those differences out the door. Let's all work together on this, and we need to leave the I at the door and put we into this room. With that, I thank you guys all for coming here today. And the last thing I will say is I do commit, and if Jay calls me and needs something, or Harry, or Tim, or anybody, I will commit to try to do something at least one time, once a week, to support what's happening in this school district. So with that, Jay, I thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thanks, Brian. And also, we have Jim Slone representing the United Auto Workers up here. Jim, would you like to say a couple words?
No, I would like to thank each and every one of you for being here today. As I look back in my lifetime, for all of you that are teachers, some of my teachers were some of the most important people in my life next to my parents, because I spent a lot of time with my teachers, and you guys were very, very important to me. My teachers were, as a lot of the kids, the examples and the role models that they have are you. You are the role models. That's why we have to make sure that you're in charge of your classroom, that you get the help, that you get everything that you need. And a lot of people said, Jim, what does UAW have to do with this? You guys are auto workers, aerospace workers. We do all kinds of things. One thing you need to understand is that from Tim to Rich Rankin to Harry, myself, Jay, Brian, we all work very, very closely together. And that's something that you have to remember. In a union, we all stick together. An injury to one is an injury to all. If one of you in that school is injured, then you've injured the UAW. The UAW has been injured. And I want you to remember that. When Harry calls me and says, Jim, I need you someplace, I think Harry will tell you, Jim will be one of the first people there. Because we do stick together. We want to make sure that we are going to win this battle. Now, we had talked a little bit about this being an SB5 moment. So now we're going to call it SB70. Okay? That's what I'm saying. They can disagree with me. My heart says it's an SB70. SB5 started out, we started saying, hey, how are we going to plan a trip down to Columbus? So we may have to go to Columbus. So if we do, I remember getting a phone call and said, Jim, can you get a bus? We're going to send you a bus. But you may have to go over to Cleveland, you may have to go over to Parma. I said, well, I don't want to drive over there to get on a bus. Send a bus to local 2000, we'll fill it. Are you sure you can fill it? Yeah, we ended up having 3 buses leave local 2000. Why? Because everybody there in the UAW, and along with some of the teachers that lived in that area, worked in that area, we all got together and we started to spread the word and said, hey, we're going to Columbus because we got to fight the Senate Bill 5. We're just trying to take our unionization away from us. So that's what can happen here with Senate Bill 70. Okay, House Bill 70. Okay, Senate Bill 70, House Bill 70. But anyway, we're gonna call this what it is, and we're gonna take this thing on. And Tim, I'm gonna call Rich Rankin tomorrow. You may see him before, or Monday. You may see him before me, And I'm gonna say, hey, we need to get on board with this. And we need to get this thing together. If we need to go to Columbus, we're going to Columbus. And I expect everyone of you to do that. Because you know what? As Brian said, if you can get on board, if you can get inside, if you're inside, you know what's going on. Standing outside, a lot of times you don't. So guess what? Maybe we're just going to have to do what they did when they tried to keep us out of the State House, and it was one of those really, really, really cold days. Matt Lundy was there, and with Dan Ramos, he remembers, and they finally opened the doors, didn't they, Matt, because of so much cane that was raised. Sometimes we have to come together as a group, a large, loud, vocal group, and let them know what we need. Let them know what we mean, and let them know that we mean business. I remember going back, follow the money. Always follow the money. And that's what we're doing now. Let's follow the money, okay? And when you follow the money, you find out that a lot of your charter schools, it's all about money. The guy that had ECOT built a mansion down in Florida. With whose money? With our money. Okay? So, just saying all that, I know we've been here a long time, so I'm gonna wrap this up by saying, whatever Jay needs, he's gonna let Harry and I know. I'll let Tim know. We're all gonna come together, and you know what? We're gonna fight this. We're gonna win this thing. We are not in this to lose. We're in this to win. And again, I have relatives in the school district. I have teachers that are out in the Keystone district, but I have some of my family that's in this school district. It's very, very important to me that we win this fight. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jim.